All right, welcome, comrades. It is with a heavy heart that I must inform you that the esteemed and beloved Marxist Paul live channel has been seized by a gang of roaming gigachads from the Deprogram podcast. This ship has been commandeered by JT, Hakim, and Hugo. Your loving former host Paul, am currently being held at gunpoint by these scoundrels. Now, I suspect that they're trying to poach my personal mass following of about 20 or 30 people that I've spent years cultivating on this channel. But with their guns to my head, I'm left with no other choice than to allow them to have their way with this stream and its mass following. So, handsome gentlemen, seeing as you have forced my arm here, please introduce yourselves to the audience. I'm not sure who wants to go first. I think the podcasts usually start off with JT. Will we follow that format?
Yeah, sure thing.
Okay, big pressure. Hey guys, I'm JT. I am an American, unfortunately, from Texas. I run a channel called Second Thought. If you haven't seen it, I make YouTube content, lefty stuff at a 101 level. So that's me.
All right, I am currently posting on Twitter. I'm Hakim. I run a YouTube channel creatively titled Hakim, as you may imagine. I make comic stuff. I'm in a podcast with these two lovely people, and that's about it.
Fantastic. And
I love how, depending on how fucking massive their channel is, the less of an introduction do they need. I'm JT from Second Thought. Everybody fucking knows me. I'm Hakim, the fucking doctor. I'm kidding. You fucking love you guys. And now it takes me 3 hours to explain what the fuck do I do.
What does that mean?
Oh Jesus! Shut the fuck up.
600 subs.
Oh no! But with this one, with this live channel, yeah. By the way, guys, fucking subscribe. Don't be fucking cucks.
Yeah.
But yes, my name is Yugopnik. I've done vodka streams with Paul many times. Hopefully, most of you are at this point know who I am. I also run a left-wing channel on here, tackling capitalist, socialist, and fascist topics. And recently, I have been blessed enough to have free time in between running a podcast with these two, which was an absolute nightmare. Thank you.
Amazing. Fellas, thanks so much for coming on. It's absolutely great to have you on here. Really, really enjoy the new podcast. It's absolutely fantastic. It's just really fucking funny. Holy shit. Hakim was actually, for the people who've listened to the podcast, Hakim was running slightly late, slightly behind schedule for this stream. So you may get a little reference there, but it was other people, don't worry. It was someone else who made him late for this.
Exactly right. It's not me running on Arab time, okay? That's a racist stereotype.
I see Andrew Murray in the chat there says, fun fact, the thumbnail isn't actually photoshopped. Yugopnik actually does look like that.
Yeah, ironically, I've seen him.
I mean, you can see it's on the screen right in front of you right now. The lad's standing in front of the waterfall. Check out those apps. Yeah, absolutely brilliant.
What a beauty.
We're going to be doing a few Q&As throughout the stream. We've got a few questions that we've been asked beforehand, which we'll go through them. We're going to keep it pretty light. We're not going to be diving into anything too heavy, anything too. We're here to have fun, to relax, take it easy, and at least Hugo and I are having a drink or two. So we're going to keep things pretty light today. So if you have any questions, feel free to put them into the little live chat box there. Make sure to tag me so I can see them, so they'll appear on my screen. So just type in @MarxistPaulLive. Then I'll copy and paste them onto a little Google Doc that we have, and we'll work through them in due time. So, guys, thanks very much for being here. There was a question that came up recently. There's a few questions on the document, and feel free to take whichever ones you want, or any questions that you see from the live chat. But there's one question that came up that I just love, and I need to answer, and it's this one. It's from Nahid Ahmed. Mashallah. Nahid Ahmed has commented.
Mashallah.
A question for Paul, Second Thought, Hakim, and Yugopnik. Who is your favorite non-communist revolutionary, and why?
Well, it'll have to be Paul.
He's saying I'm not a communist.
I'm teasing. I'm teasing. Not
Shit.
I'm sorry.
I'm here 2 minutes and you're fucking burning me. Jesus, I thought I'd have a honeymoon period before I got to roasting.
Sorry. The joke being there is that not the non-communist bit. You're
Yeah,
a Marxist like everybody else on the fucking stream. But the joke was that you're gonna lead the union of all counties of Ireland. Inshallah. So that's why my favorite revolutionary of all time, Marxist and otherwise.
Oh, that's very nice of you to say.
I
I appreciate it. Well, let's see. Fingers crossed. Anyway, for a 32 county socialist republic, we'll get there. I'm not sure who wants to jump in next. Hugo, seeing as you were last time, do you want to come in next on that?
Yeah, sure. Like I have a few, but I'll mention one that might not be as well known to a lot of people because he's a very interesting revolutionary because he kind of managed to pull things off without too much quote unquote violence. His name is Miloš Obrenović, who ended up being the first king, I believe, of Serbia after the Ottoman Empire was pushed out of the region. And there was a guy before him who started the first Balkan uprising, specifically for the Serbian ethnicity, against the Ottoman Empire, and it ended up being squashed through absolute brutality, where everybody who participated and everybody who knew anybody who participated, pretty much getting their heads cut off and getting impaled on very large sticks. But this gentleman realized that you cannot fight such a much bigger enemy with direct conflict or with, just literally swords and bullets. So he started quite literally more diplomatically interacting with the Ottoman state, which was slowly decaying and managed not decaying, but slowly becoming less and less stable, and the viability of the Ottoman Empire keeping its vassal states was slowly going down. So he was kind of smart to use that moment and, as a representative of his ethnicity, diplomatically explain kind of to the Ottomans that it's more worth it to give, for example, more rights to these quote unquote minorities, because otherwise there will be constant violent revolutions. And then when certain rights were given, they slowly grew them further and further and further, and waited for a moment when, the second, or was it third, again violent uprising came, which with the help of Russians and other Balkan states, etc., then later led to the liberation from the Ottoman Empire. So yeah, basically Miloš Obrenović, cool guy, because he was a non-violent revolutionary and was actually kind of successful. Obviously, the violence was necessary afterwards, but it was pretty cool to see this guy who doesn't even know how to write sit in meetings with people who are educated their whole life on, leading diplomatic talks and actually managing to get a shit ton done for his people. So yeah.
Epic.
That guy.
Epic. I love it. And JT, who's your favorite non-communist revolutionary?
I don't know if I'd call him my favorite, but as an American, I have to give honorable mention to Thomas Paine. He was kind of a, the founding fathers-ish era. He was a, well-known revolutionary, kind of a proto-socialist, you could consider him. He did have some form of a labor theory of value. Workers to reap the rewards of their own labor, but he obviously didn't have the structural framework to analyze society at large, because obviously socialism wasn't really a concept in that time. It wouldn't happen until like 20 years after his death that started to kind of become codified. But he was really cool. He died and had like 6 people come to his funeral because everybody hated him while he was alive. But afterwards, so that kind of sucks. But afterwards, he got some of the recognition he deserved, I think. But yeah, Common Sense is a good quick read if you haven't read it. It's interesting to see someone from the United States espousing ideas that would be considered absolutely communist propaganda today by any politician.
That sounds an awful lot like my favorite non-communist revolutionary, and probably from a similar enough period, to be honest with you. It'd be Wolf Tone, Theobald Wolf Tone. He would have been alive from 1763 to 1798. Would that be around the same kind of period that Thomas Paine would have been around? Sort of 1700s period.
Actually, let me look up when he like within like 2 decades or so. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, he died. He died in 1809. He was born in 37.
Yeah, so they'd probably very much some sort of contemporaries, probably about Republicans and sort of caught up in that whole wave. Yeah, no, I'd have to say my own personal one would be Wolftown, Theobald Wolftown. He's the father of Irish republicanism. Outside of Ireland, generally be called Fenianism. This guy, it's very. So if you look at the history of Ireland, you've got this country that gets colonised, of course, by England and then later Britain and the United Kingdom, and Wolftown comes from a Protestant background, which would have been imported through settler colonialism, right? So he comes from the background of the settler colonizer, okay? And he was very much a class traitor, very much a traitor to England and the crown and all this sort of stuff. Again,
Favorite kind.
The best kind, you know. So he was a real traitor to settler colonialism, you know, and of course French Protestant. He famously stated that to subvert the tyranny of our execrable government, to break the connection with England, the never-failing source of all our political evils, and to assert the independence of my country, these were my objects: to unite the whole people of Ireland, to abolish the memory of all past dissension, and to substitute the common name of Irishmen in place of the denominations of Protestant, Catholic, and Dissenter. These were my means. Now, when we talk about Protestant and Catholics in Ireland, you need to understand them as placeholders for settler and native. You know, Protestant would of course been Protestant would have been coded as the settler colonizer, and Catholic would have been the native Irish. You know, and that's of course a result of the Protestant Reformation in England, and then people being sent over in order to secure loyalty to the crown from that. Do you know what I mean? So Wolftown wanted to unite everybody, you know, despite his own background as being quite a wealthy bourgeois settler colonizer. Despite his own background, he championed the national identity of the colonized and united everyone underneath it. And not only Protestants and Catholic, but also dissenter, which would have generally referred to like Presbyterians, but also, you know, Jews, any other religion or non-religion at that time. So incredibly progressive thinker for his time, and he also had a good working class focus as well. You know, he wrote famously that if the men of property will not support us, they must fall. Our strength shall come from that great respectable class, the men of no property. And so this working class focus was carried forward by a comrade of his from the organisation that he founded, the United Irishmen, and his name was Jemmy Hope, or James Hope, and we would generally consider James Hope or Jemmy Hope to be the father of socialist republicanism, or Irish socialist republicanism, you know. But Wolftown was just a really incredible figure. I have to say, and please don't take offense to this, JT, Wolftown had a bit of a distaste for the American Republicans, particularly as a result of he saw that a lot of them supported slavery, and he was a fierce egalitarian. He was very probably as far left as you can be in the 1700s, you know. And so he was very staunchly opposed to slavery, and that really caused him to lose a lot of respect for American Republicans, unfortunately, at that time. But he had an incredible life, you know. He gave his life for national liberation of Ireland. You know, he led over 50,000 United Irishmen in the fight for national liberation during the Irish Rebellion of 1798. And he got captured, of course, and then he ended up committing suicide rather than dying at the hands of the enemies. So I mean, he's an absolute hero of the Irish Republic, and I'd encourage anybody to look into his history and his legacy beyond that. You know, so yeah, another one of these very progressive figures who really came before communism was the left-wing movement taking us forward. But definitely, there were certainly the seeds of communism and socialism within his theory and thought. You know.
I wanted to like it would be super hilarious. Sorry for interrupting you, but to say like your favorite non-socialist revolutionary, and then say Lenin. Make people fucking murder. That would be so funny. I'm sorry. Yeah,
you deserve to be excommunicated.
Of course, I don't think this, but like just if I
how do we kick Hakim?
Hilarious, just to see the reaction.
Someone's gonna say Trotsky.
Oh, I mean,
sorry to any of the Trotskyists who are watching.
In Lenin's words, he was a political prostitute.
Sorry to the Trotskyists and the prostitutes who are watching.
Политическая проститутка Trotsky.
Oh, yeah.
It even sounds better in Russian. But yes, no. Like he was a socialist, whatever.
Yeah,
But,
these are all jokes.
unlike
This is
Lenin,
not-
who obviously
We're
was
fucking
not.
Of course, no.
Yeah.
Lenin was our favorite liberal. Okay, please. He advocated for reform. Yeah.
Well, you know,
Lenin and Mao were too liberal for
Yeah.
my tastes. I would.
Yeah. Unironically, to this day, my favorite memes are those where they do the punish snake look on Bernie Sanders, and, and it's a meme. It's like, oh, make Son look like a fucking anarchist. That's so fucking funny. Oh my god.
the hopes and dreams,
Oh,
unfortunately,
geez. Again, it's such a shame with that movement. But of course, just to reiterate, all this is jokes. Nobody that we're mentioning we're not fucking casting judgment. Blah blah. I hate that we even have to fucking say this sometimes. But one dude will clip it and then
We'll be cancelled.
Anyways. Yeah, you're cancelled on the very niche internet sphere of Western English speaking leftism. Oh, the how will I ever recover?
To pack it in, fellas. That's the end of it for us. Our lives are ruined.
Oh fuck.
We had a comment earlier,
see.
a comment or a question from I can't pronounce the name actually. Avalash Potajwar. I can't pronounce it. I apologize, comrade. I don't know if this person is comrade because they said, "You guys all tankies, as in you." I think this question: are you guys all quote tankies, as in you support all the socialist regimes non-critically? Fellas, do we support all the socialist regimes non-critically?
I never criticize anything.
No, never.
Never ever.
Jesus.
Ever no. Like even Adolf Hitler. Like I'm like, okay, based red pill. Not just not liberal enough. Like what the fuck?
Guys,
what is
guys.
non-critically? Oh god, Jesus.
The Soviet Union had one mistake, and it's that they stopped at Berlin. There we go. That's the only mistake that they had. No, I'm kidding. I always hate this because first of all, that's not what a tanky is. A tanky is just basically whatever you want it to be at the given moment. Whoever you're describing, the soy wojak who you paint is always the tanky, right? It's such a stupid, meaningless term. Number one. Number two, I have never in my life met a Marxist that was non-critically supportive of actually existing socialism, either former or currently existing. Usually it's the other way around. Some of them are like ruthlessly critical, and some of them are even kind of unfair in how critical they are. Even like small, tiny, fucking minute details. They're like, well, they should have fucking, in April of 1937, they should have. Fuck off, dude.
I feel called out.
Hey, look. No, there's a time and place for every discussion. And in when you're sitting with a bunch of other well-read Marxists who know the subject matter, then yes, these conversations are actually very helpful and very fun to have and very fruitful. But when you just see like a stupid, I don't know, fucking Twitter post, right? When a baby leftist goes and takes a look and they haven't even read the very basics, they can't even tell the fucking difference of socialism and communism, between socialism and communism. Yeah.
Actually, that leads in quite well to another comment and another question, and we can tie them together. From Jess, who asked, "What are some recommendations on the best ways to engage in comradely criticism within a party or organization and with the masses?" So, how do we engage in this? I mean, as you said, a point that you made was just know the right time and place to make the criticisms, which I think is hugely important. And I think obviously one of the biggest things, of course, is acknowledging the format of unity, struggle, unity. Now, unfortunately, and I have to say, I'll hold my hands up here as well, that particularly students of Maoism can be quite very much struggle all the time. hands up there, But really, the way we need to be dealing with this is, of course, unity, struggle, unity. Right. Let's stop dicking around. Let's just put that nice. Have you ever heard about the feedback sandwich?
Feedback sandwich?
The feedback sandwich.
Are there loops in the sandwich?
Well, there's something
the
in
feedback
there.
look, but I guess
somebody
learned how to eat it, so it became a sandwich. Yes.
Well, let me tell you.
tell us.
Let me tell you what it is, and then you can tell me how you'd go about eating this. It's like 3 layers. There's 3 layers to it. Okay, there's 3 layers. The first layer at the top is something positive, constructive. Okay, so something you like. The next layer in is something, let's say, constructive criticism. So I don't want to say destructive, but something negative. Okay, so first layer positive, next layer negative, and then below that again, finishing on something positive, something constructive. So again, that would reflect unity, struggle, unity. So you're starting strong, you're starting positive, complimenting someone, saying here's something that you do that I like, here's something that you do that I don't like that I think you need to improve, and also here's another thing that I like. That's a really, really useful way of approaching people and letting them know that we're doing this together. Nobody's perfect. We're all going to be wrong over and over and over again, and we grow stronger together by admitting that, and by people constructively criticizing us and helping us to find the right answers and right lines, together. So that's what I would say: unity, struggle, unity, or feedback sandwich. I don't know how you'd eat that, Hugo. Have you any thoughts on how you'd handle the feedback sandwich?
No, that is perfect advice, because you when talking to another person, be they are a socialist or etc., and be them of different strides, at the end of the day, you are kind of in it for in the long run for the same kind of ideals. And yes, somebody would even disagree with what I just said, but understand that your path of growth and of understanding the given ideology took a while, and you did not know a lot of things before you got to where you are. So interacting with another person who obviously wants to push the world in a similar, at least, direction as you do, should be interacted with in a manner which will constructively help them to get to the best possible conclusion as possible, instead of just conf all the time and trying to gain as many social points by calling somebody out very publicly and telling them that they're an absolute fucking idiot because they have a take that you don't agree with, and there's always going to be enough people that are going to agree with you on that take, and enough people that agree with them on that take, and then you have your own little two clubs fighting and getting nice little Patreon donations, nice little Twitch subscriptions, and it's just going to go as a roundabout forever and ever and ever. And this is talking about the online left. When it comes to in real life, obviously this does not happen as often, and the debates are usually much more constructive, because you're actually not debates but discussions, because you're actually sitting across someone who if you quote unquote win, you don't really win anything. Well, online you do actually win something, very often monetarily. So the only thing you want to win in real life when discussing something with another person is either convince them of your point of view or get convinced in their point of view. Basically, learn more. So yeah, using the sandwich would be a very decent approach to tackle many things, which are very often quite black and white. But as Hakim very well said, depending on what situation you're in and who you're talking to, the approach needs to be a bit different. I mean, if we're discussing the Soviet Union, for example, the four of us, and we can criticize it for 5 hours, right, without even stopping, it would be one thing. But talking to somebody who's a reactionary or a capitalist or, God forbid, a centrist, you would not actually. You would your initial reaction would be to probably defend it, because you know for which principles you're defending it, and you know that this person is just going to throw 100 gorillion dead Stalin vuvuzela at you. So
no,
properly and adequately set your mood and use the sandwich method as often as possible, because it sounds like you very eloquently put it in a system that I never actually thought of, which would usually work. They let their guard down with the compliment, then you shove in a critique, and then before they can take their guard up, you again calm them down by giving another compliment, and it's a win-win. It's very good, very smart.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say as well, though, it is really important. While we have to recognize the correct place to do these things, to engage in criticism, it is really important that we do engage in criticism. It's one of the errors, actually, unfortunately, of the 20th century, of 20th century socialism and communism, is that unfortunately within communist parties and left-wing organizations, there was a tendency to view the organization as a kind of monolith, where there was no contradictions internal to it, everyone was just of the same mindset. And of course that's part of democratic centralism, because externally we present ourselves as united and we're working towards collective goals. Of course, we do have, let's say, unity in action, but there has to be within that diversity in thought. So I always think about that. Unity in action, diversity of thought, and within the party, within the organization that you're in, you need to understand that the party itself is a unity of opposites. It is a contradiction. It is comprised of all these opposing forces fighting against each other at all times. Do you know what I mean? So there's always going to be there's always going to be a left, there's always going to be a right, there's always going to be a revolutionary line, there's always going to be a reformist line. And it's important to recognize that and to challenge that and to fight accordingly. You know what I mean? Because a lot of people are actually quite afraid to do that. And it can be very healthy for people to be challenged on their misconceptions. Do you know what I mean? Because I've had many things that I didn't realize I was wrong about until somebody pulled me aside and said, here, look, Paul, what you're saying there is totally incorrect. Here's some good sources, here's some corrections, and here's where you can learn more about that. Then I can go away, think about it, read more on it, and grow and develop. And everybody's stronger as a result of that, you know. And so between these different lines, these lines that are struggling against each other, that's how you come towards, that's how you democratically figure out what the line is that you can then centralize. Do you know what I mean? So first democracy, then centralism, and then of course moving together, externally united. Do you know what I mean? But there is of course that struggle that always has to go on within our movement and within ourselves with comrades, you know, and we need to detach ourselves from liberal egotistical notions about ourselves. Someone offering criticisms to us, helping us to realize where we're wrong, that's not an attack on our individual selves. Do you know what I mean? Like it's okay to be wrong. We're all fucking wrong. Unfortunately, streaming and these kinds of places like where we're at right now encourage people to be extremely liberal and to never be wrong, to always have the right take, to say I'm completely undefeatable, I have the correct take on absolutely everything. And you have to have a take on everything, by the way. You can't just someone can't ask you about something and you just say, you know, I don't know that much about it. You know, you can't do that because that's not very monetizable. You know, people don't really want to watch someone or listen to someone who's going to say, I don't really know much about that, I'm not going to say anything about it. Do you know what I mean? So you have to have a take, and even if the take's wrong, you have to have it and you have to stick by it. You have to stand by that take. And so when someone corrects you and shows you and teaches you something that you didn't know, you kind of have to ignore it. You know, you kind of just have to ignore it, and you have to, I suppose, dig your feet in even further. And it doesn't help anybody. You know, unfortunately, this is a very individualistic mindset, and I think we need to move more towards a collectivistic mindset where we actually accept that other people do know more about different things than we do. You know, like for example, I know that JT knows way more about the situation in the United States than I do. You know, I know that Hakim knows way more about the situation in Iraq than I do. I know that Hugo knows way more about the situation in former Yugoslavia than I do. You know, don't indox you there, Hugo. You know, but yeah. So I think we really need to work on de-individualizing our mindsets. De-individualismizing. I don't know how you'd say that, but. Accepting criticism really and being humble and having humility, if that makes sense, but still struggling with that. Do you know what I mean? A lot of contradictions there.
I don't know how you can have humility when you're that beautiful, Paul.
Jesus.
Oh,
Hakim. And especially I'm seeing the picture of you right now on the screen, and it's just like you topless.
I mean, you have real pictures of me topless. Why does this matter?
Shh, Hakim. That's the OnlyFans secret. No, anyway.
Yes. Okay,
it's
it's
not
okay.
a bad idea, actually.
Well, you know, I mean, I suppose the alternative is to pull the Bake Me Bro shit on Twitter and Twitch and all that sort of stuff. So fuck it, let's just do OnlyFans. It'll be fun.
Oh man.
All right. Did anyone else want to come in on how to best engage in comradely criticism within parties and orgs and with the masses? And alternatively, the question of if anyone's tankies. I'm not sure. I know, JT, I didn't hear that much from you. I don't want to speak over people or anything like that. Or Hugo, if you guys wanted to come in.
You guys covered it pretty well. I mean, the only thing I would add is that not to get too into the front lines of Twitter. I mean, it's very easy to quote tweet somebody or just take a screenshot and say, this is dumb, lol. And then the person might see that and think, well, that sucks. I don't like that. And then that's not a positive way to help someone understand that they may be incorrect on a certain topic that they might not know about. I mean, everyone is ignorant about something, about a good many things. Like, I don't know how to fix a boat or really cook. I could burn a salad. But if someone were to say, you suck at these things, be like, that's not very nice. But yeah, it's just make sure you have a wholesome approach. Don't roast people online in front of everybody. Just, pull them aside, say, hey, I noticed you said this. Maybe we could talk about it sometime.
Yeah. Yeah, hard agree on that. It's also important to keep in mind as well that, like, I would say that 99% of these public roastings online, again, that's another totally individualistic thing. That doesn't actually help. And in many cases, they're not even interested, the people who are doing the roasting. They just want to get their little dopamine hit from getting, a tweet that goes viral or whatever. They're not really interested in actually collectively, correcting errors. They're not actually engaging in criticism and hoping for some kind of rectification. It's just dunking on someone for fun, for shits and gigs. And, it can be pretty... It can be pretty destructive and stuff like that. So yeah,
I think something to also add, like I get, because it's supposed to be a light conversation, or whatever, but most of it, actually not most of the time, practically all the time, they don't mean anything. These internet squabbles, like at the end of the day, it's just a bunch of people doing a bunch of nonsense and on their computers, and then they just go on with their life without any actual contribution to the movement. I think the good way of thinking about it is like this: you can hone your skills in discussion and appropriate like criticism online if you want to, but afterwards this should be applied in real life in actual organizations, not just stick to fucking Twitter nonsense. The Twitter sphere and online left bullshit is not where the revolution is going to happen. Okay.
What?
Yeah.
I thought these streamers were leading the revolution. I don't know what you're talking about.
Of course, no. Oh my god. This is why I think I love Yugopnik for many things, but one of my favorite things that he's said is that we, like myself, I don't want to speak for JT or Yugopnik, but I think it applies very much to myself, that we all are just kind of like the propagandists, like agitprop, the poster people of today, right? We're the guys who make the nice little fucking slogans and put them up on walls as the actual movement of class contradiction and struggle happens around us. We just kind of facilitate by trying to affect people's thoughts on different things. Otherwise, we really are not superfluous, maybe, but that's not the right word. Tertiary in importance, I guess. There's a specific word for it in English. It's not coming to mind, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Unnecessary in the grand scheme of things, but it's like seasoning. Maybe I think it's like seasoning. You can still have a very good meal, but without seasoning, it's missing just a little something. And I think that's what we are. Actually, that's not a very fair attitude, because I'm Arab and Yugopnik is Balkan, and JT has some Syrian heritage somewhere up there, so he likes his spice too, I'm sure.
For not having spices in America.
I love many spices, especially mayonnaise. Mayonnaise is my favorite spice.
Get fucked, dude. You have no idea. The Discord server was filled with people talking about their fucking mayonnaise.
I'm a big mayonnaise defender. Americans, one good thing you do is have big jars of mayonnaise. Very good. I moved to Texas and buy big jar of mayonnaise and bring home, and whole village happy because they eat for 7 years one American jar of mayonnaise.
You can use it for fertilizer. That's the only thing it's good for. Fuck that shit. Fuck. Lord.
I have to say, I think you're doing yourselves a disservice by just saying that you're just seasoning or a little bit on the edge or whatever. In fact, I think that what yous are doing, and especially the three of yous, because you have these massive platforms and yous are reaching so many different people, I think yous are doing actually a tremendous amount, as long as we don't see it as just some individualistic thing where we're just trying to big up our own egos. Yous aren't doing that. Some people are, but yous aren't. And I think that yous are actually really helping. And what I will say is that I think the best way that you should see what yous are doing is that yous are amplifying a larger revolutionary movement. Do you know what I mean? Like this, it's providing an outlet for amplification of struggles that are there. Do you know what I mean? So I do really, really appreciate what you're doing, and I don't think you should sell short the impacts that yous are having. Actually, I want to give a little shout out to Peace Report as well. The Peace Report, a fantastic channel, because he's recently put his channel back up again, which is absolutely fantastic. He took his channel down because he sort of felt like, I believe anyway, this is my understanding, was that he didn't really feel it was making that much of a difference. But it was only after taking his channel down that he realized, oh shit, there's all these people coming forward now and saying, wow, those videos you made really made a massive difference in my life and really opened my eyes to this and totally changed my mind on this or that subject. So it actually is really affecting people in ways that we maybe can't perceive immediately. Because I know when you're organizing in real life, you're knocking on doors, you're talking to people, you're actually in the workplace, you're talking to your co-workers, you're doing this, you're doing that and the other, you're in the housing union, whatever it is, the tenants union, whatever it is that you might be doing, you're actually talking to people and you get the feedback right away. So you can actually feel that impact that you're making. And we can't see that when it comes to online stuff because it's how can we say, on demand. The stuff is put up. You put up a video and that's kind of the end of it. You know what I mean? Other people are then left to interact with that in their own time and in their own ways. But they do, and it's making massive differences, you know. And you can see that. And like, look at your subscribers. It's mental. Like, you're doing great stuff here. So don't undersell yourselves and don't undersell the work that you're doing. You know.
I mean, you're doing great stuff by letting that sweet voice ring into my ears.
You're too good.
Oh fuck,
lads. Do you mind if actually? I'm sorry, did someone want to come in on that?
No, I'm good. I was just dying from Hakim's flirting and being a bit jealous, but that's all.
I mean, it's okay.
I don't mean to.
I get to talk. I talk to him once in a blue moon. I talk to you every week, Heavy. Please, you're close.
It's fine. Yes, no problem. I will share you, Paul.
Well, you can share me, and you can high five Hakim while you're okay. Fucking hell, that's graphic.
I am the one who shares porn video about Breaking Bad. I am the one who takes and gives. Yeah, sorry. Oh Lord, this is gonna get clipped, isn't it? Yeah. Go on.
Clipped, cancelled, redeemed, maybe. I don't know. Oh man, that's hilarious. Come here to me. If it's okay with you guys, I'd like to just read out a couple of notes of solidarity internationally for people. It'll only just take 2 minutes. Right ahead. That's okay. Yeah. Okay, so a comrade hasn't. Cheers, guys. So let me just actually put up a little screen here, a little different picture on the screen, so it doesn't look like it's not the Gigachad. All right, let me put up a nice little. Okay, we got a nice little Socialist Republican flag. We can take it slightly more seriously for the next 2 minutes. Okay, just 3 points, 4 points actually. Comrade has informed me that Anti-Imperialist Action Ireland has created a new Discord server for supporters of the movement for national liberation and socialist revolution in Ireland, and that's just gone live today. So on that server, you're going to find all kinds of educational resources about the revolutionary Republican movement in Ireland historically and today. Obviously particularly focusing on socialist republicanism. You'll also be able to ask veteran socialist Republicans questions about the revolutionary movement here in Ireland, and you'll be able to get involved in supporting the movement wherever you can, in whatever way. Even if that's just supporting online activism by sharing around Socialist Republican materials and helping to spread the message, or taking a more active role in it. Like, for example, if you're able to make art, if you're able to use Photoshop, you can help produce revolutionary art and media to help support the cause and contribute in whatever other skills you may have. So go ahead and join that Discord server if you'd like to get involved in the struggle for national liberation and socialist revolution in Ireland. Or even just find out a little bit more about the movement. And look, why not? Even if you want somewhere to hang out and talk shite with Irish comrades, by all means join. You'll find the link to that server in the description box below. I think you'll also find it pinned in the live chat box as well. You can see that now. And again, you don't need to be Irish. You can be from anywhere else in the world. You can be involved with any other progressive movement. The server's open to anyone who supports Irish national liberation, socialist revolution, and anti-imperialist action Ireland. Next point is that December is Prisoner of War Month here in Ireland. And I want to take a moment to extend solidarity to the revolutionary Republican prisoners across the country who've been incarcerated for taking up the fight for a 32-county Socialist Republic of Ireland. It's summed up from a post on AIA's website. December is the month for highlighting that there are still Republican prisoners of war in jails across Ireland for their opposition to the illegal British occupation and partition of our country. Men and women who would never have ended up in the cell but for the ongoing imperialist interference in Ireland, and they took the courageous decision to resist it. Being an Irish Republican is not a crime. Many of these Republican activists are in fact interned by way of special non-jury courts, or MI5 stings, where no evidence or belief evidence is presented to lock up revolutionaries for several years at a time. Anti-Imperialist Action Ireland this December once again calls for the release of all Irish Republican prisoners of war and for the abolition of special non-jury courts in Ireland. We further call on people who support the Republican cause in Ireland and around the world to write to the prisoners of war this December a simple card or letter to show your support for political prisoners of war. We send all our solidarity to all Irish prisoners of war and to the welfare organisations that work tirelessly throughout the year to support the prisoners. Now, if you'd like more information on that, you'll find a lot more on the aforementioned Socialist Republican Discord server. And you can ask any questions you may have there. I also want to give a little shout out to the comrades over in the Philippines at the moment. Now, you may have seen I put up a little message on Twitter about this and on the YouTube community tab. Because the elections in Philippines are just completely ridiculous, you have Duterte and this fascist regime, you have to have a verified YouTube account with at least 100,000 subscribers in order to run online campaign ads. So a candidate who comes from the National Democratic Movement, a progressive, left-wing, anti-imperialist, long-time activist, and even a former political prisoner and torture victim, is asking for your support to reach that goal. Now, his name is Neri Colmenares, and he's a Senate candidate. His YouTube channel is called Neri Colmenares Official Channel, and you'll find a link to that in the description box below this video. So please, look, if you do nothing else this evening, show some support to the comrades in the Philippines and their National Democratic Revolution by subscribing to that channel. It may not seem like it, but just hitting that subscribe button will really, really help them. And if possible, please share this channel as widely as possible. Last thing is I want to express condolences to and solidarity with the Indian comrades in CPI Maoist. 26 comrades were martyred on the 13th of November in the Gadchiroli district of Maharashtra in India. The 26 revolutionary fighters were murdered in cold blood by the fascist Modi government's state police forces. Their lives will not be forgotten by revolutionaries the world over. Their legacy will remain a shining beacon of revolutionary resistance in a world dominated by the terrors of capitalism and imperialism. Red salute to the comrades, and we'll raise a drink to their memory, as well as to the memory of the recently martyred Ka Oris in the Philippines. Socialist Republican solidarity with the revolutionary movements in India, the Philippines, Peru, Brazil, and Turkey, as well as all those fighting for national liberation and socialist revolution across the globe, in particular the Palestinian people. Guys, the road may be long and arduous, but imperialism will be defeated. The exploited and oppressed masses of the world will be victorious. Long live proletarian revolution and international solidarity. Cheers, comrades. I'll have a drink to that.
Allah. Yes.
Cheers, I will as well.
I will cheers. I'll cheers a imaginary drink. Non-alcoholic, of course.
Of course. And if you guys want to do any shout outs to any particular movements or struggles or countries or anything at all, now's the time to do it. No,
I think that was perfect.
I think the list was excellent for right now.
Okay, fellas, thank you very much for allowing me that interlude. And now we can return to talking shite and being just a little bit homoerotic with each other.
A little bit.
Well,
what is this revisionism?
Well, a little bit on air, I meant. Hang on, I need to pull us off.
If this stream isn't taken down for sexual content afterwards, we're never done our job.
I am so confused as to why, like in English, it's pronounced titty instead of titi. Like titi is so much cuter than titty.
Like
titty. Oh, fuck, I'm getting. Oh, it's so cute. No, not like titty. Like instead of titty. Oh my God, she got a big titty. You say titty. Like
singular.
Titty. It's so titty. Yeah, it's a titty. Titty. I'm in love. Oh.
In Ireland, we say tits.
I wasn't muted. Oh shit. Yeah.
It sounds even harsher in the Irish accent, I'm afraid. So, yeah.
Good old tits.
Look, I don't personally. I've always found the Irish accent very endearing. That's not homoeroticism for Paul. I mean, there's always homoeroticism for Paul, but that's not meant to be just homoeroticism for Paul. I've always loved
fetishizing you're fetishizing the Irish race. Oh God.
Oh yes.
Sounds pretty basic.
You want to use them as a tool for sexual satisfaction.
You wouldn't be wrong. I do have a fetish, and his name is Paul. Anyways, but yeah, what I was gonna say is one eternal, I think, glory that the Irish accent has attached to it is the fact that Lennon spoke English with an Irish accent, and one of the greatest injustices of the world is that he wasn't recorded. There's no fucking recording of him speaking that. I would love to hear that shit, because he's gonna have like some weird like Russian cadence with some mixed weird Irish accent. It would have been so endearing, I would think.
Can I? Hakim,
and plus, it depends what kind of I'm sorry, Habibi.
Hakim, I may have to crush your dreams. For anyone who's interested, for anyone who's from Ireland, you'll notice. You'll notice when I say this. Lennon had a Rathmines accent. Rathmines is a very upper class bourgeois area in Ireland.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so he did have an Irish accent, but he had a bourgeois Irish accent.
Well, I mean,
so-
better than nothing at all, right? There's some who would say my English accent is bourgeois. Actually, no. You should see, dude. You should see some the older the highly educated people from like a previous or 2 generations ago, and how they spoke English, like Iraqi people who spoke English. It's very nice. It's almost like an English accent, but not. It's like a almost colonial sounding. It sounds very nice, I think.
Probably the transatlantic accent, the early like the 30s to 50s American accent. Be my guess.
The host, the kind of host. Yeah. Hear it on the flights and stuff. Yeah.
Yep.
Sison from the Filipino movement kind of has something similar to that going on. That really old timey kind of accents, when he's speaking English,
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I mean. I think it sounds very nice, very endearing, and it's a shame that I had to go for the most widely heard accent. Simultaneously the most unpleasant. I'm sorry to say, it is the most unpleasant.
The alternative is Anglo accent. So to be honest with you, as an Irishman, I'll take the Yankee accent. I'm sorry, I will.
Irish is phenomenal, but the American accent sounds perfectly fine to me. Australian is fucking annoying beyond belief to me, even though I genuinely enjoy some people from that literally fictional country. Nobody can ever prove to me that fucking place even fucking exists. Okay, fucking spiders the size of my fist. Yeah, fuck off. Fucking go put it back in the fucking Nirvana book or whatever you found. Nirvana, no, what was the name of that thing? Not Nirvana, Narnia.
Narnia, that's it. Yeah.
Jesus.
I was gonna say, no.
I hate the fucking English accent. With all due respect, actually, no respect to Anglos, but Anglo comrades,
man,
maybe.
after my own heart.
But
I love you,
Irish number one, American number two accent. The American one is absolutely fine, especially the one in the South and shit. It can even be kind of sexy. I have to admit.
I like that one. I like the Italian, that kind of New Yorker. That Italian New Yorker accent. I love that.
I'm walking over here.
I'm walking. I love it.
Fucking JT is probably losing his shit. He's like, this is what the fuck? They're making a mockery.
Sorry, JT. Texas is okay,
it's great.
I don't know, JT. What's your accent? Because I remember you told me you're not originally from Texas. Your accent is something else, right?
Yeah, it's kind of a mishmash. I'd call it just a lazy American accent.
It sounds very nice. I've noticed, sorry to cut you off, but this is the reason I really like your accent, because something that I noticed, and this is why, by the way, some people like tell me like, oh, your accent sounds so American, and I listen to myself and I'm like, yeah, no, not at all. I can pick out all the mistakes. But you have that light background American accent.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but they're Americans who overpronounce fucking everything and swallow letters. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, when I lived in Connecticut, people would do that all the time with like double T's, like they'd say kitten instead of kitten.
Yeah, that weird shit.
Yeah,
we do that.
Drives me crazy. I live. Yeah, no. Yeah, but
glottal stop. That's what it's called.
I want to hear you. I want to hear you do this bourgeois Irish accent. Can you do it?
Yes, please.
I try to clean up my accents when I'm talking on streams and videos and stuff. So you hear me. What you're hearing is probably as close to that as I can get. It just sounds a little bit more. It just sounds a little bit more Americanized. It doesn't sound like
okay.
It kind of cuts the edges off it, and we tone down the colloquialisms. We tone down the just the language that's being used. Like, I'm not coming on here and using like a really strong like working class Dublin accent, like it's like from where I live. Don't dox myself there, but anyway, the accent associated with my area would be like, all right lads, what's the story, how are you getting on boys, all right? Like, that's what we'd be like. And then people would be just like, what the fuck are you smoking, Paul, can I get some? So so I try to how can I say, make it a little bit more friendly to the international ear, who maybe and I put the little captions on the videos so people so people can get the subtitles in case they can't quite make out what I'm saying. I suppose it's just quite well spoken. The accent, that bourgeois Irish accent, you need to understand the bourgeois accent in Ireland in terms of colonialism. Excuse me. So historically, when Lenin would have spoken with that accent, that would have been very much an Anglo-Irish accent. So it would have been quite similar to what you were talking about earlier on, with that sort of international sort of transatlantic kind of accent, there would have been a twang of that in there as well. But it would have been very influenced by the British accents, because of course, like, the bourgeoisie in Ireland would have been so closely linked to the bourgeoisie in the UK. You know, they would have been this sort of comprador class, and they would have sort of seen themselves as closer to that class rather than closer to the unwashed masses of Ireland, you know. But these days, actually, as the dynamics of colonialism and semi-colonialism in Ireland have shifted, you know, of course, Ireland still, the 6 counties in what's so-called Northern Ireland is still a settler colony, and of course, the so-called Republic of Ireland, 26 counties, is a semi-colony. But as the semi-colonial power has shifted from purely just being England, or the UK, we should say more broadly, and now the influence is coming from across the Atlantic as well. Like, now we have people in Ireland speaking with really strong American accents, you know, in the more bourgeois, in the very bourgeois sections, rather than seeing themselves as part of the unwashed masses of Ireland. They sort of they'd see themselves as more being as being a little bit closer to that sort of international sort of the hegemonic. Really, what we're talking about here is cultural imperialism, and I know we sort of touched on this a little bit beforehand, but it's really a sense of cultural imperialism, and so as a result of the shifting in power globally towards the United States, Canada as well to a lesser extent, I suppose, but the United States in particular as the global hegemon, Irish people who are more bourgeois and petty bourgeois would then adapt that accent, very much a sort of Midwestern kind of accent. Do you know what I mean? And that'd be sort of superimposed over the Irish accent, and there's still the odd colloquialism here and there. They'll still say, you know, maybe like "how are you" or something like that, rather than "how are you." You know, "how are you" is what we would say. But yeah, so when Lenin would have been speaking, it would have been an Anglo-Irish accent. That would have been the upper class bourgeois accent at that stage, at that moment in time. Nowadays that bourgeois accent would be more US centric, if that makes sense.
Have you guys heard? I think it took you. Have you guys heard Castro's English?
I've heard a couple of words. Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah, he's had entire interviews that he's done in English. One of the very early ones. It's like the 30-minute segments, and he speaks only in English. It's actually, he spoke very decent English. Like, of course, he makes some mistakes here and there, but he can discuss like detailed, complex political topics with some limited vocabulary, but he can do it in English. But he has a very thick, Hispanic accent, or Spanish accent, I guess you'd say. And it's very endearing, because in Spanish he sounds very authoritative, but in English he sounds very cute.
Yeah. I don't want to say like weak or something, but it's very, it is a kind of almost like a feeble kind of when he starts speaking. Yeah, there's that series, Cuba and the Cameraman, and I think you can hear quite a bit of it.
Yeah.
It's very
exactly
good.
Right.
Very.
There's also for those who are unaware, Gavada, he spoke French, and there are clips of him speaking French, entire interviews. But him speaking bits of Mandarin, bits of Russian, and bits of English, even though he could speak all those 3 languages at least a little bit, there's not much footage of them. The only footage I've ever found of him saying anything in English was a impromptu interview he did when his plane was grounded in Ireland, en route to somewhere else, and basically some reporter rushed there to do an interview with him, and the only lady who could translate was a stewardess who spoke Portuguese badly. So she was trying to translate for him, and he says the word for clown in Spanish, and she doesn't know what the word is, so he tells her in English, and he's like, clone. He's so cute.
In his blood,
so fucking cute.
In his veins flowed the blood of Irish rebels.
Of Irish rebels, exactly right.
The blood of Irish rebels.
We laugh at the fact that we laugh at the bit of English, but I can't imagine how his Russian must have sounded, or his Mandarin, or for that fact, Mao's English, or the little bits of it that he could speak. Fuck it,
they tried.
Yeah, they tried. Hey, those. Yeah, that's more than most Americans.
Yeah,
it's true.
More than most Irish people. Jesus fuck. Tragically.
Most Irish people don't speak Gaelic nowadays, right?
Colonialism's a bitch.
Yeah, that is a real shame. That's a real shame. It's such a beautiful language.
They just fucking wiped it out. Yeah, I know about 10 sentences that I just rehash whenever I want to play with my Irish credentials.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah. They literally in school, like when they're teaching you Irish, and like you've got your final exams. You know, you're 16, 17 years old. You're coming to the final exams at the end of it. The leaving cert is what it's called, the leaving certificate in Ireland, and they literally get you to memorize essays. Like they get you to memorize, like you'll have to write an essay during the exam, and they get you to memorize about 5 or 6 essays off by heart, and you just basically take those and slightly adapt them to whatever question they ask you on the exam. So that's we just literally learn a few little essays and a few sentences, and that's the extent of it. But you know, sure, it was James Connolly though who said, though, and it's quite interesting because I'm blaming colonialism here, but James Connolly said that it was actually capitalism who did more to eradicate the Irish language than colonialism ever could, than the English ever could as themselves, you know. And of course that's because, as we know today, English has become the language of international capitalism. Everywhere you go in the world, you have English signs. Every airport in the world, there's signs up in English. Do you know what I mean? And unfortunately, that even though the 26 counties, the so-called Republic of Ireland, the Free State is what we would call it, Republicans would call it, you know, even though we supposedly became independent, of course we know it's a semi-colony, but supposedly we became independent, and we had this opportunity to speak English, I suppose the push from international capital was to speak English and to meet the requirements for international capitalism. And of course, as we know, Ireland ended up just becoming this bureaucrat capitalist state meant to serve international capitalism, imperialism. And so it ended up being capitalism itself that eradicated the Irish language, more so than the violence of the colonizers, more so than the butcher Oliver Cromwell slaughtering tens of thousands of people in the 1600s, far more so than the famine killing over 1 million people in the 1800s and forcing a further million to migrate, to leave the country. So, you know, effectively wiping out over a quarter of the population. So more than so more than the horrific violence of colonialism, the dispossession, the displacement, the genocide, the famine, everything, more than that, fucking capitalism, international capitalism, imperialism was a far more effective way of eradicating the Irish language, the Irish culture, the Irish tradition than anything else. And I suppose, lads, I'd say you should probably have some good stories to tell in a similar vein with regards to cultural imperialism yourselves, particularly Hakim and Hugo. I think you have a lot to say about this, and JT, if you have any thoughts on this, I think it'd be very interesting to hear. What are your experiences with regard to the pressures that we have to facilitate the English language, but not just the English language, what that means, you know, what that means in the world, you know, of course what that means is being part of the Anglosphere and the opportunities that opens up to people. What are your experiences with what we might call cultural imperialism?
I would say I want to add one thing about the Americans being monolingual. I remember I had a very stupid experience. Basically, TLDR, it was at some area where I happened to see an American middle-aged lady who, I don't know what she was doing here, but she was probably related in one way to the occupation. And she goes up to basically an ATM, and she puts in her card, right? And there's like languages that come up on the ATM, and one of the languages is English, right? But it has the British flag, right? The Union Jack. And she's looking around and she's like, this machine doesn't have American. I still remember this to this day. This fucking was fucking getting so angry at an ATM, at an inanimate object, like, this thing doesn't have American. Oh fuck.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Lord. That's such a disservice to the American people. I refuse to believe most Americans are like this. I refuse to believe it.
I'm sorry, but the US bourgeoisie can eat a whole bag of dicks, but no, the American working class, there's a lot to be hopeful for amongst the oppressed masses.
But yeah, I think maybe, like, just TLDR, I think Yugopnik, you'd agree with this. The most annoying thing about cultural imperialism is because the youth usually end up learning English, and then they engage with the internet, and then they consume lots of American language media and movies and games and music and or like and other sorts of stuff. And basically, they end up kind of like through osmosis absorbing very shitty liberal opinions of the American majority, especially like the the Hollywood liberal types, right?
Exactly.
And
They become redditors, like
yeah,
literally
yeah.
redditors. Like everybody, like in parts of the world that are not as economically stable as possible. A lot of kids which get to spend a lot of time online because their parents have enough money to buy them a PC and for them to have internet, which obviously in the last 20 years was to a lesser extent, but now a lot of people can arguably afford this.
Mm.
Um, they end up, as Hakim said, just absorbing the dumbest, the most mainstream, the cringiest takes
Yeah.
from the West. And then when they sit down, then they talk to their fellow youngsters in a cafe or in a restaurant or while out on a walk. They think that they're like dropping some mad fucking wisdom,
Yeah,
you know?
fuck. Yeah.
Like the Hillary emails were a Russian hack. Don't you know that? Shit like this, and they think like they're all man, fucking brilliant, dude. I'm a proper informer on the political situation over in the West. That it creates a sort of cultural subclass of anti-intellectual chuds that think they're the shit, which is Reddit pretty much. So
fucking
Reddit moments.
Well, actually, I'm interested. JT, do you have anything like that? Like, of course, I mean, cultural imperialism within the U.S. is a silly idea overall, but do you have anything, especially with like how young people and their political outlook and shit like that?
Yeah, I mean, it's more the inverse here. Like, there are certain expectations when Americans go abroad. Like, we don't have any worry about going somewhere and being, people expecting us to speak their language. Like, Americans will typically expect the people whose country they're visiting to speak English. So that is
lol. Example given here.
exactly. Yeah, that's what made me laugh. It's like, yeah, that sounds exactly right. But yeah, I mean, languages are being taught in schools less and less frequently here, at least in my experience here in Texas. But then again, I only have experience with a very reactionary school district, like where my siblings go. It's been, not to dox myself or anything, but it's been in the news a number of times, this particular Texas school district, for some decidedly questionable, even fascisty policies, and getting rid of languages is one of them.
It sounds actually horrible, especially as annoying as it is. The proximity of Texas to Mexico and the amount of people who are of Latin heritage and just how much exposure you'd have to Spanish. And they would, why not? Fuck, you can actually. What a shame.
It's true. Yeah, I mean, we've got a tremendous Spanish-speaking population here, and like my wife and I are trying to learn Spanish slowly by ourselves. And we're making a little headway, but yeah, it's shocking to me that more people don't at least make an attempt to speak Spanish, because it just makes sense.
Honestly, I completely agree. Yugopnik actually, I don't know, but Yugopnik speaks the massive language complex that is the Yugoslav languages. So I was gonna ask. Actually, go on.
No, you say it.
I was gonna ask you, perchance, do you know any Albanian? Because it's very fucking different than the rest. But I'm wondering.
Oh no, Albanian sounds like again, plenty of Albanian friends, real like Albanian people. But to me, it sounds like a combination between, I don't know, Italian, Slavic, Greek, and something else. Basically, like the Sims language. You know how the Sims talk. And I do not say this as an offense. It's just that's what it sounds like. And I believe it is an incredibly difficult language to learn. So absolutely, yeah, I have no experience with Romanian, Greek, or Albanian. Yeah, those are very, very different to Serbo-Croatian, like, or Bulgarian or Macedonian, right? But Serbo-Croatian, Bulgarian, and Macedonian. Serbo-Croatian obviously I speak natively. Bulgarian, I think I speak very, very, very well, and Macedonian, I think I speak pretty well. I had the opportunity of using those three languages very often. So yeah, and in school I studied Russian, and I knew a bit of Deutsch from when I was a kid, but I completely forgot the German. So yeah, now it's English, Serbo-Croatian, and a bit of Russian, and I guess some other Balkan Slavic languages. But yeah, living in kind of a relatively cosmopolitan place, even though it's cosmopolitan to the extent that we all want to mass murder each other, it gave me a lot of cultural leeway of getting to know people from all over the place. And the place I was lucky to study at, I can't say exactly where it is because I would dox myself. But it had a lot of people from literally all over the world. So it was very nice to actually experience internationality, true internationality, where, people actually brought their cultures with them and they were proud of their cultures. And you could learn that, yeah, in Iraq, they have roads and it's not just a fucking desert. But I love the first day when we came there, and there was a Mongolian dude, and he was talking to this cocky, what was it, French girl, and she was like, "Oh, Mongolia, you guys still use horses there, right? There's no cars. It's very eco-friendly. Bravo for you guys." He was just, what the fuck is going on? But yes, this cultural imperialism can form itself in many ways, but we shouldn't. Okay, yeah, internationally, maybe it would be dumb to say that cultural imperialism has an impact on the states, but inside of the US, I think JT might agree, there is a sort of push for people to behave as the quote unquote ultra civilized people from the big cities, the more
Yeah.
known
Oh,
cities,
yeah.
and the small town culture is dying off. And the idea, for example, that it's a beautiful thing, for example, to live off of the land and to be in different industries which are now looked down upon because they're not necessarily either as culturally elite or as financially viable, etc., etc. So, the social classes, not economic classes, social classes, can parasite on each other inside of the imperial core as well. And you also have imperialist. Not that case won't be imperialist necessarily, but you have elitism that, for example, people from, I don't know, from Dublin interacting with people from smaller towns, or people that
Yep.
move to Dublin
Yep.
kind of become Dubliners and try to suppress the fact that they're from somewhere else as much as possible, so you can properly integrate into this more civilized big city mentality. And sometimes that
Very
is a
metropolitan.
direct cause of the economic discrepancy between two places, which is a direct link to capitalism. But sometimes it's not even a capitalist problem. It's just bigger place, more opportunities, more people that can act all high and mighty because they've gotten to interact with those opportunities, and you form elitist groups in one part of the country while the rest, are become considered cheap fuckers or whatever. Yeah.
And I have to say, on that particular point as well, you mentioned Dublin and that as well. Like, if you look historically at the membership of the Irish Republican Army, the RA, like, it was generally Dublin actually had the lowest percentage of membership in the entire country. We were often called the Pale because, of course, it was a colonial stronghold for a very, very long time. Now, Dublin's expanded outwards. But if we talk about Dublin City, like the city, what would now be called like we would just call town here, but what internationally might be called the city centre, that particular area was a colonial stronghold going back historically, and not that many people would have joined the Republican and Socialist revolutionary movement in Ireland in there. But outside of that, the further west you go towards more rural areas, you really see, you can look up charts of this, the membership of the revolutionary movements just skyrockets. It's mental. So like the revolutionary potential is actually outside of the city, at least in this particular context, and that's of course shaped by colonialism and labour aristocracies and people feeling like they've got a few breadcrumbs that have been thrown down off the table, so they don't fucking need to struggle. Do you know what I mean? No, that's not to denigrate or dismiss the working class struggle that has happened within Dublin. Of course, the 1913 Dublin lockout was a testament to the working class consciousness that developed, and it was tens of thousands of people on the streets out fighting for the cause of labour, which is the cause of Ireland. But in terms of like the Irish revolutionary struggle, generally speaking, the revolutionary struggle was actually outside of this big metropolitan city. You know, it really was coming from the countryside, the more rural areas. So solidarity to the comrades outside. Do you know? Sorry, that's probably
Absolutely.
that's a really random little fact. Sorry, lads.
No, it's not.
Please excuse me for coming out with all this shit.
No,
It's linked
please.
to the conversation. Yeah.
For me and
But it
Hugo,
makes
this
sense.
is
Yeah, it makes
well, me and Hugo here. We're having a few drinks. This is just like pub talk. I'm sorry, JT and Hakim. I apologize, lads. This must be
It's okay.
just rambling and going off.
Look,
No, it's fine. I'm
I'm
down to my last. I went looking for drinks, and I'm down to my very last cider in this house. And I thought I had more alcohol, but I do not. So I've been
Based.
slowly nursing a single drink over this.
It's okay. It's alright.
Cheers to you, brother.
Well, cheers to
It's
that.
still
I'll
something, you know.
do a little clink.
I am drunk on the sweet voice of JT. Hey, baby. Hey.
Drunk on Gigachad images.
Slaps only asked, is this pre-recorded? Heavy, what do you think? This fucking stupid, this level of stupidity can't be pre-recorded.
So refined, so polished. Oh my god, that's funny. Yeah, you know, there've been a few questions. I'm not sure if you want to push through with a few questions there. I'm not sure. JT, I know you had a few questions from your server. I'm not sure if there are any questions that jumped out at you that you wanted to ask, but I do have to give you the opportunity to at least. I can read through. There's a few questions that I saw that were interesting and that I can fire through.
Go for it.
But no, was there anything that you wanted to answer that you saw and thought might be, you know, might lead to a good conversation or might be interesting or whatever from your server and like that?
I'd have to scroll back up and find it. So
Oh,
if you got the list in front of you, yeah, you go ahead.
Okay, let me see here. Now this isn't actually from the server. The questions that you gave me, I know there was a couple of questions there, and I can get into them later if we want. But there was a recent question which it's linked to a couple of questions that we've had across the different social media platforms: Twitter, YouTube, Discord. A few people have asked about the question of nihilism, and someone recently asked about this. It was in the live chat recently, called Weird WERDW at Marxist Paul. So what's the biggest influence that currently drives you and your guests with continuing the struggle towards communism? So I suppose the question that seems to be being asked is, what drives us to keep going with the struggle? Why do we not fall to nihilism? Why do we not just say, fuck it, it's all, there's no hope, let's just throw in the towel, enjoy ourselves, who cares, I'll just play video games and get stoned and the world's probably going to end in the next 20 years, who cares?
History and class struggle will happen with or without you, and usually your apathy will be turned into action once the a revolutionary situation is met or the class struggle peaks. It's less about being nihilistic yourself and more, again, down to the material conditions of your time and place. Currently, in highly developed imperial core countries where there's very little revolutionary potential or movement, it's unsurprising that people are somewhat apathetic. Doesn't mean that there shouldn't be people who try and work. I always give the example that Lenin, of course, he thought he wouldn't see the revolution, and just 2 years later he was leading the revolution. So yeah, being nihilistic is kind of pointless, I think. And also it reflects, I think, a lack of reading, I would say, because if you actually read into history, you'd realize it is a thoroughly unsupported position to have. Being nihilistic is just wrong. If you look at the 20th century and into the 21st century, we've just begun, man. Nothing's happened yet. Or actually, many things have happened, but the vast majority of them are in the third world, right? Doesn't change the fact that there will eventually be movements that will develop here, and the dialectic is in motion. I guess.
That's JT.
Yeah. I mean, speaking as the resident American who is seated comfortably in the lap of luxury, as it were.
I wish you were sitting in my lap.
Me too, brother. I tell you what.
Sorry, I was rushing to get it out.
Quick. That was quick.
Sorry,
fuck.
Oh my god.
Oh, what was I even gonna say? I was just gonna say, it's very hard to It's very
Blood is
hard
rushing
to
to the
imagine.
dick now. He can't think.
Yeah, yeah. I was like, oh no, I've lost it.
Nothing left in the brain.
Yeah, it's as an American, it's hard to, imagine a situation in which there is revolutionary upheaval in this country that has long been seen as this bastion of capitalist stability, et cetera, et cetera. And obviously, that's not the case. But there will come a time, God forbid any of you suffer, any of your family suffer, but if there ever comes a time when you miss 3 meals, well, guess what? You're probably going to pick up whatever weapon you have lying around your house, and you're going to pick a side. So that's your current conditions are not indicative of the way you will feel in some hypothetical future. So I would just keep that in mind. But also, Hakim's right. Do a little reading. I mean, history has not ended. I mean, we're very much in a tumultuous period, and it's going to get even more tumultuous going forward, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Hugo.
Beautifully put. Yeah, I could not agree more. Like, what pushes me on a daily basis to keep doing this kind of call lines with what the guy said. But I would add, like, every morning I wake up and I interact with the world. I go to work, I walk around, I see the way things are run. I just feel disappointment. And I don't know if there's any other word that could describe that particular set of emotions, which every time when you notice something and truly know that it can be much more lubricated and it can run much more smoothly and that it can oh lord, now don't fucking sexualize
He's
this.
getting ready.
I'm trying to make a serious point here.
Sorry,
No,
sorry.
like basically what I'm saying is I am extremely disappointed in what we have been doing, at least for the last 30-40 years, with this incredible technological boom, which has only served to make a certain group of wealthy people even wealthier, instead of that helping us together with ideological fervor restructure the world into something which can be less disappointing than what we have as a species kind of taken as a direction, which, yes, all the cliches, oh, burning our planet, etc., but outside of that, it is genuinely weak and sad and pathetic to see that to this day in 2021, almost 2022, we're just competing in turning massive malls into online malls so that your fucking Zara T-shirt can come faster to your home. Nobody's dreaming anymore. There's no actual ideals that we as a species are going towards. Just living day in and day out and consuming as much as possible, which lets you feel a bit better for a few hours until you go back into the spiraling depression, which is your existence. And that is, to me, a systemic problem which can be solved through systemic change. And that is what pushes me every day, because the alternative is just choosing to not necessarily completely nihilistically give up and renounce the world, but what 99% of people do, which is embrace it and just fucking live it and hope that maybe it's gonna take you in a different direction than it took absolutely everybody around you in, which is eventually going to be an unfulfilling, pathetic, sad fucking life. So yeah, the being disappointed in the world and and fear of not mattering. That's what pushes me every day.
Beautiful, poetic. I have a few thoughts. There's a couple of points that I want to make on this particular topic, and it actually links quite well to another question. So I just want to read out that other question as well, and that'll frame the answer to the questions with how to approach revolutionary optimism, how to deal with nihilism, and so on. The Friendly Marxist, great name, asks, do you believe a successful vanguardist movement is possible in the imperial core? If so, what might it look like? And if not, what should those of us here be doing? I'm going to put the question of vanguardism aside for the moment. I think that's a separate question. But I'm going to deal with the question of whether or not revolution is possible in the imperial core. And I think that this links
I
quite
think,
well.
sorry to
Yes,
cut you off. I think
yes.
it's a good idea to let JT go on this, because he is the most imperial core of the Imperial Core out of all of us. So
Yes, please.
the lived experience is valuable.
Sure. I mean, just to toss a couple of quick thoughts out there before I toss it back to you, Paul. I, you don't want to engage in being overly optimistic or anything like that. But I think when people say a revolution in the Imperial Core is impossible, I think they are being a little short-sighted. Living in the United States especially, the average person can look around, and whether or not they have the jargon to explain it, they can visualize, they can see that the contradictions here are the most acute in the capitalist world, I would say. And because of that, they can hopefully, eventually, with a little bit of help, and maybe this can get to the Vanguard bit, can put two and two together and say, okay, you know what, I understand why this is happening now. And that could build revolutionary consciousness. Obviously, that's not set in stone. That's not 100% going to happen. But I think it is a mistake to assume that it is impossible somewhere like the United States. That's just my perspective.
Agreed.
Well, I have to say, with regard to this particular question, with regard to the question of like third worldism and all this sort of stuff, and I have to say, I have a lot of respect for the comrades who do take the third worldist line. I respect them. I think that they're generally coming from a very good place, generally speaking. But I don't agree with the central thesis that their revolution is not possible in what we can loosely call the first worlds. And I have to say, I mean, look, you can point to Marx, and you can point to Marx saying that, for example, the English ruling class can only be defeated in Ireland. Can only be defeated in the colony outside of it. You can point to that, and that was, of course, something that Marx concluded later on in his lifetime. And yeah, there's something to that. There's definitely something to the argument that where there's a greater level of oppression, there's going to be a greater level of resistance. That's 100% true, and that can really help to bring people to the point of taking up arms to put power, to transfer power from one class to another, from the bourgeoisie to the proletariat, to engage in proletarian revolution. And that can be really a really important factor. But we always need to come down to what is this central question of Marxism. What is the basis for socialist revolution? What is it? And to answer this, we need to go back to the basics. We need to go back to Engels, socialism, utopian and scientific. The basis for socialist revolution is not just a subjective sense that I feel fucked over more so than someone else feels fucked over. No, the basis for socialism, for scientific socialism, for revolution, is the resolution of the antagonistic contradiction that exists between the social character of production and the private form of appropriation, which is inherent to the capitalist mode of production. And of course, this antagonistic contradiction manifests most prominently in the antagonistic contradiction between the proletariat and the bourgeoisie. So, is this fundamental antagonism present within these imperialist cores? And objectively, yes, absolutely. You have workers in the factories whose labor is being exploited. The surplus value and the surplus labor is being appropriated. The product of that is being appropriated by capitalists. The antagonism is there. The basis for revolution is there, objectively speaking. And that's Engels. That's Engels' perspective on what is the basis for revolution. So it is there. But also, we can't ignore the reality that movements outside of the imperial core are generally quite a bit more advanced than the movements within imperial cores. It's hard. It's very difficult for anyone to argue that, for example, the comrades in India or the Philippines or Peru or Turkey or wherever it might be outside, that these comrades aren't further ahead than people in the imperial core are. It's very difficult when you see people who are actually already at the stage of armed struggle, waging people's wars against these imperialist powers or comprador classes and in bureaucrat capitalist states and so on. It's very difficult to make that argument as well. So. And that's why I would be quite sympathetic to the third worldist position, because just looking at the material reality around us, people outside the imperial core are far more advanced. They're at a far more advanced position than people within the imperial core are. But the basis is there. The basis is there objectively from the scientific socialist perspective. The basis is there in the imperial cores, but it's complicated by factors like labor aristocracies and so on. It's also complicated by the national question. It's complicated by colonialism and so on and so forth. And you know, you can also look, of course, towards Ireland, towards here in Ireland. You know, the armed struggle has never ended in Ireland, for example. Like I can't say too much, obviously, for legal reasons.
The armed struggles never ended.
So,
I'm part of it right now.
I heard a little birdie told me that a mate of mine told me a friend of a friend told me that the struggle never ended.
A friend of a friend told me don't go near the Parliament office this Friday.
You know, here's the thing right here. I actually found this out quite recently that if you're in the UK, if you say up the Ra in the UK, like as in I support the Irish Republican Army, if you say that in the UK, you can get locked up for 6 months. Do you know that? It's fucking crazy, isn't it?
Really?
Yeah, you can get locked up for 6 months. For 6 months, if you're living in England and you say that, you get a knock at the door.
I mean, if you sing the Soviet anthem in Ukraine, you can face up to 5 years prison time. So
yeah.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah. These fucking
guys, no, there's freedom of speech under capitalism. Okay, you can do whatever you want.
Freedom for whom? Yeah. Freedom for a certain class. That's what it is.
By the way, but Paul, I have to say I really do disagree with your central thesis. I truly do believe that the People's War will begin in Walmart. All right. Okay.
Well, time will tell.
Between the Shake Shack and the Walmart. You encircle the Shake Shack.
Well, we have Well, I have to say, we have a similar phenomenon in the European, you know, because Ireland is in a very strange position as well, because, like, on one hand, Ireland is both colonized and semi-colonized, but it's also got access to the European Union. So it puts us in a very contradictory position. First world, third world, people don't really know where it sits within that spectrum, or is it somewhere in between or something. It puts us in a very strange place. And so we have a similar phenomenon, like where, for example, we are at the same time super exploited by France and Germany, and I can get into that in another conversation. Maybe we'll have a full conversation about that at some time. But there's also super exploitation of the periphery within the European Union, and super exploitation of the periphery outside of the global core, you know, of course, Africa, Asia, and so on and so forth. But we do have, like, rather than Walmart, we'd have places like Lidl and Aldi, and places where we can shop very, very cheaply. This gives even, I suppose, the most hard done by people in Ireland our own sort of benefits, like people on minimum wage. Like, I mean, Jesus Christ, people have gone on and been like, oh, Paul's making loads of money or something like that on Patreon, and like, lads, I'm getting like €1,200 per month on Patreon. The minimum wage in Ireland is €1,800. To rent an apartment, the average rental price for an apartment is about €2,000 per month in Ireland. So do you know what I mean? So I'm on like 2/3 of minimum wage, and I can survive on that, and I can be okay on that. Like, it's a tough time. It's not like I am fucking not rolling. Jesus Christ, 2/3 of minimum wage. Fuck that, no way. There's a lot of struggles going on there, but I can shop in Lidl, and I can get very, very cheap. I can get noodles for 15 cents. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's and it can be okay in that regard. So there is that element there as well, and I suppose that gives me sort of a Irish people are kind of, we have like one foot in both worlds, I suppose. Which, and I think Hugo can probably relate to this to some degree as well, like one foot in both worlds, this kind of situation. I think Hugo's famously described Irish people as West Slavs at one point.
Absolutely.
You know, and I think there's a lot of truth to that. Although I will say, generally Slavic people, Irish capitalists exploit Slavic people, unfortunately, quite a bit as well, especially. No, anyway, that's another conversation for another day. But anyway,
yeah, if you get into that, it can go on for like 5 hours. Which ethnicity explodes which ethnicity, which explodes which ethnicity. You could get to a point in which it's with one point, like that's why class analysis is important. Because you don't want to get to the point in which you at the end of the day end up painting every single country on the planet as in one way exploiting another one, and therefore being defined as imperialist, and therefore not being able to quote unquote push through revolution because of its discrepancies between what it is preaching and what it is doing to another nation. And then you have the self-determination of the local and blah 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 blah. It can make matters which are far less complicated much unnecessarily more complicated for certain movements, in my modest opinion. That's why sometimes third world is, kind of, in my opinion, are overthinking it, but that's just me.
Blood quantums are the solution. I'm kidding. That's an obvious joke.
Just one drop of blood and you are tainted.
Do you know that's the weirdest thing though? Like learning about is it called the one drop rule, JT? Was it the one drop?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I've heard about the one drop rule. Yeah, it's fucked.
Yeah, like what fucking what? Why is the US so fucked up?
Just legally, like in terms of the legal implications of it, it's fucked.
Yeah, like the more you read about the fucking about American history, sorry JT, but the more you actually no, I don't apologize for this because it's not your history. Your history is
exactly
a different tradition, a proletarian tradition. You're not represented by the fucking shitty oppressive nature of former slave owners that turned into fucking imperialist beasts.
Yeah.
But yeah, still reading about American history just in general, it's like, okay, how could they be more evil today? Oh fuck. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. Okay, thanks very much for that, lads. Come here to me. We're an hour and a half in, and I'm just curious about how much time. I was thinking we'd sort of do 1 to 2 hours, but these things always go on a little bit longer than expected. I'm not sure how much time you guys have. I need, because the reason I asked this is because I need to use the bathroom. I'm trying to think, should I run and use that now? And we go for another half an hour?
You go right ahead. Yeah, we can go on for another like half hour, I guess. But go ahead, go use the bathroom, come back.
Well, can I give you a question then? Can I give you a question to answer as we go? Okay, let me see here. We had that one. Okay, we talked about third worldism. We talked about revolution, imperial core. Okay, I'll give you 2 questions that you can answer. I'll pop them into the Discord so you can see them up in front of you. The 2 questions that I have written down here is Tanky Piggy asks, I have a question. How do you guys read theory, online or paper? And Richard Smithson asked, do any of you regard anarchists as your comrades or just temporary allies? Or a distraction, which is pretty harsh, a distraction. Please give reasons. Thank you. There's also one on the state withering away. Maybe I'll just pop that in there. I'm not sure if you want to take that. That's a little bit more of a theory-heavy question. Anyway, they're in the Discord there. Do you guys want to take that? And I'm going to run off and be back in a minute.
Yeah. We'll do
it. Okay. Back in a sec. These have successfully seized the channel. JT.
It's ours now, yeah.
All right, JT, do you want to go first?
Sure. Well, as far as reading theory, personally, I prefer to read books on paper. I think it's a little easier for me to focus and keep track of where I am, stuff like that. And I like to mark things up on paper as opposed to like on an iPad or something. It just helps me remember what I've read a little bit better, I think. But that's just me. What about you guys?
Kindred spirits we are.
I like it on paper because that means trees get cut down, which is awesome. But then again, on a Kindle, I have to charge it. So electricity used, so coal is burned, which is super hot as well. So it's always a debate. So I like to drive my 700 horsepower truck while reading a massive 6-meter long, made out of the rarest of Amazon trees, Das Kapital. That's my shit. Yeah, I'm also on paper actually because notes. Literally, that's it. Notes. It's so much easier.
Yeah, I completely agree with the guys. Read paper. Okay, this is the thing. If it's read paper because your attention will be held longer. Even research has proven this, and it just feels nicer to have a physical book. But if you're worried about price and all that, find a printing service and then clean up PDFs yourself and print them. Basically, pirate books. Hakim is telling you to pirate books. If not, then you can do it on Lulu or these other websites that you could do self-printing on. Just clean up the PDFs yourself and print them out. You can get them for like 1/5 the price that they would normally be, and that's for like commonly printed shit. The stuff that's been out of print for forever is really nice to get a what's it called, physical copy of. Speaking of which, I compiled one of Albert Szymanski's books, The Logic of Imperialism, all fucking 600 pages. I painstakingly OCR'd it and turned it into a legible
Yeah.
fucking PDF. I need to clean it up, and then I'm gonna probably put it up on the Internet Archive eventually. But
That must have taken forever, dude. What the
yeah,
fuck?
Well done.
it took like 2 weeks. It was a pain in the ass, but yeah, I did it.
That's
actually.
why you were late. That's why you're late all the time. You're sitting somewhere fucking printing shit, fucking scanning a book. You're like, fuck me.
Look,
You're
have
a
no idea.
doctor. Don't you have some nurses that can do that for you?
Oh, I wish. Jesus Christ, they're fucking useless. All right, but yeah,
You see, the petit bourgeois doctor is spitting on the proletarian nurses. This is
Oh,
to be
fuck.
expected. To be
Oh my God.
expected.
dude, dude,
And the nurses, okay, third world is, and the nurses are probably not even from Iraq. They're from Yemen, aren't they? There you go.
Fucking got me.
Labor aristocracy of the Iraqi doctor over the Yemenis nurses.
Fuck.
Therefore, Iraqi people, no revolutionary potential anymore. Done. That's it.
Oh fuck! I mean, actually, listen to this shit. Oh my God! On my fucking schedule today, there was this fucking nurse who I personally I don't like this one fucking bitch. This is what she did. She's like, oh, Listen, you're gonna realize why. Because my fucking schedule is up my ass, filled with shit I need to get done, right? And she like sneaks in like a little 15-minute segment where I have like a bit of freedom, where I can catch my breath. Fucking Jesus Christ. She puts a little like message thing, and she's like, oh, I promised this patient that they'd get a time today, so here. I'm like, you fucking cunt! Who told you can do this? Come talk to me first. Who the fuck are you to promise patients? Fuck.
Yeah, but you just got like a straight face
okay.
IRL. Like you just got like a totally straight face. You're like, oh yeah, no problem.
Yeah, Habibi, you know me. I'm a sweetheart at heart. If any of you have seen my interactions with people, I this is one of the few times where I actually get very frustrated, and it's when people put shit on my schedule, even when I have a million other fucking things to do. I was very nice. I got the fucking work done, but dumb cunt, Jesus Christ.
Savage.
So yeah, that and another thing. Fuck.
Yeah,
Can I say this?
I know what it's like to have horrible fucking colleagues. Probably everybody at
Mm.
some point has experienced this.
Mm.
Remember their names, write them down, and then, as everyone says, communists at some point will just use the revolution as a means to have retribution over everyone who has wronged them in their life, and that is 100% correct. Miss Stephanie, high school teacher between age of 14 and 15, I will be throwing you out of a window. So yes, we will be having retribution over every cop which has written me a goddamn parking ticket. I'm kidding, obviously, but nah, a lot of people put that on themselves, like time to over psychoanalyze. You to over psychoanalyze. So the fucking the thing is, a lot of people do not have any purpose in real life. So, and they have a job that they hate. So the only way, in order for them to, because they cannot find purpose, the only way to feel valued is to impose power over someone else. So they go to work and they overexert themselves, not in a manner which will lead them to be more productive, but in a manner which will allow them to feel like they are above the other person hierarchically inside of the company structure or in the hospital or whatever. So that gives them a little, hard on, which allows them to forget the everyday struggle that they engage in. So yes, everything is fucking class dynamics, bruv.
I love the mid yawn. Oh fuck.
Yeah, absolutely. So were we dealing with the question? We were just talking about the question of how do you guys read theory on my paper? Is that the one?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we got a little sidetracked. Yeah.
It's okay.
Oh fuck.
Okay, great stuff. Thank you. I read online. I generally read online and PDFs and stuff. I usually have like a little text-to-speech reader because I generally struggle with reading from paper. I don't know. my mind just kind of races and wanders. You know, I find myself reading the same line over and over again. But if I use the text, I used to use audiobooks. I'd just like go into YouTube and look up the audiobook for this or that or the other, and then I'd follow along the text and listen to it at the same time, and that would keep me, you know, following through correctly and not repeating myself or whatever like that, and I'd be able to get through the books. Now I just use a text to speech thing on my phone, and so I just pretty much, I'd say 99% of the time it's just looking at little PDFs or looking at websites and reading online from there. So that's generally how I do it anyway. So, you know, and I will say as well, I do want to say that for people who struggle with reading and stuff, just in terms of like accessibility, just download a little text to speech application. You can get loads of them for free. I use them. There's one built into my phone. It's just a little Huawei phone, and it's just built in, and I just literally click the screen, it reads everything out to me from it, and yeah, it's grand, gets the job done. So if you're struggling with reading, if you're struggling with theory, as a lot of people do, you know, just download a text to speech app and it'll basically read it to you. You can just treat it like an audio book. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So there's a little tip from Paul, former owner of this
I want to know. I'd like another kind of tip from Paul.
Man, tips.
I think you'd like a tip from all of us, bro.
I mean, yeah, that is true. That is true.
Oh my god! Did we talk about the other question with regarding anarchists as comrades or temporary allies or distraction? We didn't talk. Do we want to talk about that?
We did.
Oh, you did?
We did. Yeah. Yeah. I'm kidding. No, we didn't. What you gonna do about it? This is my channel now.
I'm not gonna do shit. You've commandeered it. I'm gonna have to announce some sort of fucking, I don't know, counter revolution or something like that to take it back.
Now we need to Photoshop you out of the pictures.
It's already just the three of you.
Who knows this reference is? I like, if you got that reference, I like you.
A very Stalinist moment.
Yeah. Oh fuck.
Yeah.
Oh, thank God we haven't had any Stalinist internet today. I mean, I say that, it's probably going to fuck me now, but...
What did you say, Hugo? Can you say it again? Sorry, you cut out for a second there.
I was not saying anything, bro.
Okay, shit.
Oh,
right
shit.
as I say it.
I said Hugo, I didn't say Hakim. Fuck, the beers screwed me over. They messed my joke up. Fuck.
Okay, I thought actually cut out. Fuck.
No. Stalin's ghost is not messing with our internet connection. It's messing with my mind. Messing with my coherence. Fuck. Alright, well, there we go. Take two.
Stalin or Yagoda, you're getting the wall, bruv, so you can hear whatever fucking name you want. I'm joking.
You know, I have to say...
We have overtaken the channel, yes.
The seashirt's
Go on.
completed. Well, I have to say, on this particular question, I don't know if any of you guys want to mention this. I actually, with regard to this question, it's from Richard Smithson. Any of you regard anarchists as comrades or temporary allies or distraction? Please give reasons. Thank you. The way I would see this is with regards to the construction of a revolutionary movement, and when we talk about the construction of a revolutionary movement, these days we generally talk about concentric construction. At the core, you have, of course, the Revolutionary Party, the Communist Party. Outside of that, next layer out, you have the People's Army. Outside of that, again, you have the United Front. The United Front is comprised of various mass organizations, alliances, networks, all kinds of things like that. Now, anarchists I would actually consider anarchists to be great comrades in terms of the mass organizations and the United Front, and there's a lot of room and space to work together with them. And in fact, I find myself in general agreement with the left wing of anarchism. I'd say probably, well, certainly more than we disagreed. You know, we'd have a lot to agree on. You know, maybe 80% of the time we would be agreeing on things. You know, particularly with regard to the left anarchists, what's sometimes called like the social anarchists, as opposed to like the individualist or like lifestyle anarchists. You know, so I think there's a lot to work on there. And in fact, what I would say is that most anarchists that I know, and I can't talk to just ML, but certainly whenever I talk to people about like MLM, anarchists generally love it. I don't know. Maybe that's just because people call, you know, students of MLM red anarchists. Maybe it's related to that. But you know, whenever I start talking about things like, you know, like the mass line and stuff like that, like I've heard anarchists talking about implementing like the mass line and stuff like that. And I'm not 100% sure how they would conceive of that fully, but they seem to generally be quite amenable to MLM ideology. Of course, they have criticisms of former socialist projects, and some of that's valid. A lot of it is unfortunately often a result of just pretty much Western anti-communist propaganda, which, you know, when you're kind of new to the left, you haven't quite broken away with. And at the same time, even though there will be engagement at the United Front level, there is also going to be struggle. You know, it is going to be a unity struggle, unity situation. You know, we shouldn't try and gloss over that and pretend that we all want the fully same thing. With the anarchists who and I would say that there's generally two strands of anarchists. One strand of anarchists who kind of mostly wants to get rid of hierarchy, another strand who mostly wants to get rid of class society. The latter one, who mostly wants to get rid of class society, who wants to overcome capitalism, and who wants communism, those ones are pretty much we can work together. You know, we can definitely work together. The ones who really want to overcome hierarchy, we might struggle a little bit because there is hierarchy in Marxist revolutionary communist organizations. There is going to be hierarchy there. There's a dialectical unity between, you know, bottom up and top down. We know that through the mass line, both internally and externally, you know, between the party and the masses, and also within the party between the central committee and the rank and file of the organization. But I do generally think that at the level of the United Front, in terms of networks, in terms of mass organizations, there's a lot of space for working with anarchists. And but I don't want to lie either. I will always be trying to talk to anarchists and be like, hey, what do you think about this MLM? What do you think about this? What do you think about doing a little bit of mass line? What do you think about doing a little bit of revolutionary vanguard? What do you think about a little PPW? You know, what do you think? and they'll be doing the same thing as well. They'll be trying to struggle with me as well, and they'll be trying to correct me and doing this, and that's fine. You know, we'll disagree with each other on some things, and we'll agree with each other on other things. But I do think that there's a lot of room to be working together at that level of the organizing. Guys, what do you think?
I think that was very fair. I mean, in the U.S., there are a subset of anarchists who are basically just liberals, and who I think they're, you know, they're honest in that they actually believe the stuff that they believe, and they're not, you know, they're not ops or anything like that. But there is a very, very counter-revolutionary strain of Western anarchists. That being said, if you go to any of the protests here in the States within the last few years, like all the street medics, all the people with handing out food, most of those people are anarchists, and so those are the ones that I think you can appreciate, you can work with, as long as they've got that revolutionary sentiment. They're at least, you know, can agree on a lot of things.
Well, yeah, and that's actually really important because a lot of this does come down to revolutionary reform, and I think that, as you've quite rightly pointed out, particularly in Western countries, there's a particular strand of anarchism which is basically just liberalism with an aesthetic, with a revolutionary aesthetic, and I think we need to separate those liberals who love having the anarchist day on them from the actual anarchists, like the serious anarchists who sincerely want revolution, you know, because there's a world of difference between them, and a world of difference between how they will interact with a revolutionary movement, do you know?
Oh yeah, for sure. Hakim, you were going to say something. I think I cut you off at the beginning.
Yeah, no, it's perfectly fine. When it comes to the question of anarchists and whatnot, it's like there's one way you can go way too far on one side and too far on the other. There are people who will go all the way and say, no, they're our enemies, they're all fucking CIA ops, blah, blah. Yeah, that's all fucking wrong, obviously. And then there are those who go all the other way, which like, anarchists and Marxists are completely the same in every regard. We have the same goals and ideas about everything, blah, blah, blah. We should just, you know, march together in tandem. I think both these positions are wrong. Yeah, anarchists and Marxists, we have a lot in common, of course, but we also have some fundamental disagreements on not only like tactics, but also just general analysis. And what this boils down to, I think, is a friendly cooperation, but not unity, if that makes sense, because unity implies that you're one thing, right? But like the TLDR of that is most anarchists that I met IRL are really cool people. The usual like weird meme anarchists are like a pain in the ass. It's just like the weird meme like commies that you see. These people are mostly online, right? People who you meet of these different ideological trends in real life are usually very nice and very helpful and want to work with you. But yeah, so it's not the question's worded in a weird way. They said, yeah, do I consider them comrades? Yes. Temporary allies? Temporary is not a word I would use, but allies in general. Distraction, not at all. But again, it depends on the material conditions, as always, right?
Absolutely. Concrete analysis of concrete situations. What we need. Yeah, it's because we
Yeah,
get.
right.
Unfortunately, like we do often find ourselves dealing with a situation that's like 100 years old. Like we're trying to act like we're fucking living the Bolshevik Revolution when that's just totally detached
Yeah.
from like the
Mm.
material reality today. Like, and like it is. And I think JT mentioned that very importantly, like in many cases, in many particularly Western countries, anarchists are often on the front lines fighting against fascism. Do you know what I mean? Like, and what the fuck are you gonna do? Are you gonna come over and like stop them while they're fighting fascists and be like, "Here, come here to me. Stalin was actually, pretty class." Like, no fucking, come on, Jesus fucking Christ. No, you stand shoulder to shoulder with them. Do you know what I mean? And I suppose in that regard, there can be a tactical unity. What we might call a tactical unity. So during those moments, we will be united. And on the issues that we agree on, we can work together on those things. Do you know what I mean? But look, as we know, like from dialectics, everything is constantly changing. Everything is constantly changing as a result of the struggle of unity, the struggle and unity of opposites within all things. So things are always changing. Where once the contradiction between anarchists and Marxists was very antagonistic, today I don't believe it is very antagonistic, and I don't think that we should be contributing to anything that makes it antagonistic. There is a contradiction there. There is. We can't deny it. There is contradiction there, but I don't think it's an antagonistic contradiction. And I do think that there's a lot that there's a lot of space where we can work together in that regard. Hugo, did you have any thoughts on that? Did you want to come in on that particular question before we push forward?
Yeah, might be the softest one on the topic here. I mean, in the nature of dialectics, the world is constantly changing. So I genuinely hope that the anarchist methodology of revolutionary activity and moving towards a anarchist society, if you want to call it that, I genuinely hope that at one point their methodology could be applied and could be successful and not overthrown in a matter of years or months. But unfortunately, the conclusions that I've come through my own reading, research, and life experience leads me to not necessarily agree with it. But as all of you have very well put, and in my modest opinion, the end goal of both of these movements is brutally similar, and when we mostly disagree on our path to get there. I remember that old, kind of relatively cringy Churchill quote of "If you weren't a
Nope, not
socialist
on
when you
this.
were young, you were what was it?"
Not on this
Hmm?
stream. Churchill, no way, sir.
Yeah, but
I'm gonna cut you off there.
you were,
All right,
if
guys,
you
it's been
were
great. We're ending the stream now. Thanks very much, guys, for coming on. Really appreciate that. Solidarity, Slungfell. Bye bye.
but yeah, if you were a leftist when you were young, if you weren't a leftist when you were young, you didn't really have a childhood or whatever. Well, I'll do a little edit of that. If you weren't an anarchist at some point in your ideological growth, I don't believe that you exist. Okay, yeah, sure. There's plenty of people that directly moved into, uh, let's call them a bit more
Hakim here, just tear
radical belief
rolling down the cheek.
systems, but yeah, no, of course they exist, but there's insane amount essential in anarchists to potentially join movements more aligned to what we try to push forward here. But at the end of the day, I do leave a space open to say that in the long run, they might be the ones who are right. And only history can prove which model, whichever one it is the one who is correct, because the one who is correct is going to be the one that finally achieves a movement from the dictatorship of the proletariat to actual lower stage of communism or socialism, and that's when this discussion will be over. Up until that point, we are theorizing, we are debating, and that is very healthy and that is very necessary. But it does not, the conclusion or genuine conclusion is not that the anarchists are completely wrong, because we will know that they are completely wrong only after a truly successful long-term project has been established. Up until that point, it's a matter of discussion. That's why,
Yeah.
again, I might be a bit soft on them. But who knows,
You guys missed one important thing, though, is that socialism is when the government does stuff.
And anarchists are against governments and windows. So you cannot have a government without windows, because you cannot have government institutions without windows, because it gets cold. Therefore,
Ergo,
anarchists are against socialism, because
anti-socialism.
socialism is big, gray, brutalist government buildings. So yes,
Exactly right.
I
See,
retake
debunked.
everything I just said.
Anarchy
No,
is
can I say-
debunked.
Can I say?
Anarchies are cucks. No, actually, MLs are cucks to Windows. Ha ha. You're window cucks.
Man, can I just say? Can I just
Bow
say?
down
Right?
before the window lords. Yes.
Anytime I've ever talked to an anarchist and I started going on about Maoism to them, in particular, because and it's important. I'm not just saying like Maoism is like a separate thing. Like when we call ourselves Maoists, we're talking about like Marxism, Leninism, Maoism. It's just another level of it. It's how we would conceive of it. Do you know what I mean? But one of the, I suppose, the things that we learn from the experience of the Chinese Revolution is that, for example, at the 11th plenum of the Chinese Communist Party, they adopted this motion, right? And it stated that the only method is for the masses to liberate themselves, okay? And any method of doing things in their stead must not be used. We have to trust the masses, rely on them, and respect their initiative. Let the masses educate themselves in this great revolutionary movement and learn to distinguish between right and wrong and between correct and incorrect ways of doing things. So it's all power to the people. Do you know what I mean? And it sounds like the sort of thing that I think a lot of anarchists would really appreciate. I think a lot of anarchists would really appreciate the people's communes in China. I think that anarchists should really strongly look into studying what really happened in Mao's China, because I think that they'd be completely very excited about it. And I think that it solves a lot of the problems as well. The error, what errors exist, and I don't want to overstate the errors that did happen during the Soviet experience. But there were errors, and if there weren't errors, then it wouldn't have fallen, it wouldn't have been defeated. Do you know what I mean? So there are some.
Mao ate all the grain.
I feel like I talked too much with my previous explanation, because sorry to do budget. Anarchists, guys, maybe you're right. I don't think you are. Please prove me wrong. I would love to be proven wrong. Prove wrong. Do it. Fucking do it. Last experiment, Chaz, yeah. Not in a very good direction in proving me fucking wrong. But okay, yeah. Sorry.
That's funny. Disgusting.
Remember when people were posting like Chaz has done more for communism than USSR?
Oh my god! I'm like fucking.
Oh, it was so much fun.
Okay. Do you know something? Do you know something? Fuck. One last point, then we're gonna wrap up for today.
Yeah.
If you were, small little history note. In the 70s, the USSR and Iraq signed a mutual friendship treaty. It was basic stuff, trade and whatnot. But one of the things was a diplomatic support for Iraqi sovereignty, of course, when the Soviet Union kind of gave a shit about that for most countries. And one of the reasons that, because the United States wanted to invade Iraq for a long time, if you actually look into the bullshit, they've wanted it at least since the early 60s, at the very least. They want to have some sort of direct control over Iraq, or at least meddling in its affairs, which they tried and failed a lot in. And this state of affairs remained until that piece of shit Gorbachev was like, you know what? He went and basically backroom deal bullshit told American leadership that, you know what? If anything happens with Iraq, we're not gonna do anything, because the U.S. still respected the opinion of the Soviet Union and still was like, hey, you know what? If this is gonna ruffle some feathers, even with a dying Soviet Union, we're not gonna carry out any aggression against Iraq. And Gorbachev and the leadership at the time, very early 90s, was basically told the Americans, do whatever you want, we're not going to do anything about it. And then the first Gulf War and every other fucking problem since. So anybody who tells me TLDR, Chaz couldn't have prevented a fucking invasion of Iraq, okay? The Soviet Union could have, okay, and did for many decades. All right, Chaz cannot. That's just my point, TLDR. Sorry, fuck. Stupid fucking. I'm so stupid. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
All right.
It's really
So funny.
Okay.
I was laughing so hard, but I realized I was on mute. Like,
Oh,
not
sorry.
even over here. Yeah.
Sorry, Hugo. Did you want to come in?
No, I didn't. I just wanted to say that I laughed. Yeah.
Maybe you can emulate the laugh.
You know, like that guy.
as we wrap up.
Like
as we
you're
finish these
sitting,
things,
you're sitting, you're chilling with some bros, and some guy says a joke, and you're like, well, I laughed, yeah. Which this wasn't the case. That's not how I wanted
yeah,
to
that's
say
funny.
it. It was actually a great story. Yeah, Chaz, definitely great defender of. No, but at least Chaz wouldn't be able to bomb you because they wouldn't have a way to develop planes or bombs.
Primitive accumulation. Please,
they-
the cannabis plantation that they'd have would. Sorry.
They would be run by narco lords, you know, like very, very good shit. So maybe they would even work for you, with you for some of that good Iraqi hash, baby.
You know, I just
Hey,
have
who
to
knows?
say though, fuck Gorbachev. Seriously, fuck Gorbachev
Yes.
so much. Can we
Fuck
just can we all
Gorbachev.
agree? Fuck Gorbachev.
How is
piece
that
of shit.
cunt
I would
still
rather not
alive?
fuck him, but yeah.
Jesus.
No,
Have
no,
you-
fuck
have you-
that.
you-
Seriously, no, guys, can we just
you know
fucking
this
take a
is-
second? Can we please? And I'm sorry to cut you off, Hakim, but can we please take a second to
Go ahead.
appreciate the fact that communism could not be defeated by fascism. Communism could not be defeated by imperialism. The US couldn't take communism down. Couldn't do a fucking thing. Communism was undefeatable, except for by the fucking revisionists. Revisionism
Yeah,
was
right.
the
On the
only
inside.
fucking thing that could take down communism. The only thing that could kill communism was revisionism. And this fucking dipshit Gorbachev is the quintessence of revisionist. What do he call himself? A market socialist? Piece of shit, whatever the fuck.
Oh,
it was,
he was a sock dem, and then he went on an interview. and was like, "We need a system that is for the people, not for profit." Like, fucking cunt, you piece of shit.
What?
What?
Bell end.
Exactly, a bell end he is. Fuck me.
Absolute bell.
And on that note,
on that, guys, on that note, thanks very much for coming on. I really appreciate you being here, lads. Thanks so much. I really appreciate you being on here. It's been a ton of fun. Any final words? Anything else that you want to say? Any shout outs? Anything else? It feels almost silly to say like, "Hey fellas, can you tell the people where they can find your work?" It's ridiculous. That's usually what I would say at the end, but it seems kind of ridiculous. But are there any last notes or any last messages that you wanted to give the people before tuning out? On this
everybody
Tuesday
go
night?
subscribe to Paul. Subscribe.
Well, exactly.
Sub now.
Fucking sub to this channel. Let's get it to 1K. That would be
Yeah.
super fucking nice.
Do it, please. That, and always remember that socialism is when the government does stuff. Vote blue no matter who.
Obviously. Lads, come on, common sense. Come on now. All right, lads, thanks again so much for coming on, and I really hope we can do this again soon. And I
Inshallah.
really appreciate everything that you guys do, and to everybody in the chat, thanks very much for being here. Just a quick shout out to the few comrades that I see right now: Vincent, Tank Biggie Vanes, Samuel Wilkins, Constantine Blois, Rachel Allen, Rock Artist, Inlands, Type In, Awesome Everton, Edior, Sam Niebuhr. Hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Guys, thanks very much for being here. Martin Barkov, good to see you, comrade. Thanks for being here, guys. We'll wrap it up there. Enjoy the rest of the week. And a little treat, actually, just while you're still here. And I won't see you again before Christmas. I'm hoping to have a video out again this Friday, talking a little bit about Vanguard parties and stuff like that. But in two weeks from today, one spooky, scary socialist is coming on this channel for a stream. So spooky, scary socialist.
Wow.
Yeah, he's a fun guy.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that'll be a lot of fun.
This is really fun.
So tune in for that, guys. Hit that little subscribe button and help me reclaim this channel from these roaming gigachads who have cooed the glory of Marxist Paul life. All right, guys, we'll call it there. Cheers, everybody. Slán go fóill. Enjoy the rest of the week. Take care. Lots of love.
Thank
Kisses.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys. Bye.